I am 88 years old. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. I also have no one to spend it with, no one to leave it to, and no one who will mourn me when I am gone. My name is Harold. I am sitting in a house worth $2 million, surrounded by expensive furniture and costly art, and all the luxury that money can buy. I am also sitting completely alone because I chose money over family, greed over love, being right over being connected. Before I die, which will be soon, I need to tell you what money really costs when you make it more important than the people who love you. I need you to understand how a man can win every financial battle and lose every relationship that matters. You think money is just a tool. You think it cannot change who you are, that it just reveals who you always were. You think wealthy people who destroy families over inheritance are somehow different from you, that you would never choose money over love. You are wrong. Let me tell you about the Hartwell family fortune, started by my grandfather in 1923 with a small construction company that built houses for working families. My father expanded it into commercial real estate. By the time I inherited the business in 1978, we owned shopping centers, office buildings, and apartment complexes across 3 states. I was not just wealthy, I was rich. The kind of rich where money stops being about what you need and starts being about keeping score, about proving your worth, about never having enough because there is always someone who has more. But I was not born rich, I was born comfortable. I remember my father coming home tired from construction sites, my mother stretching the grocery budget, all of us sharing one bathroom and thinking we were doing fine. Money was a means to security, not an end in itself. That changed when I took over the business. That changed when I realized how much money I could make if I made every decision based on profit instead of principle, if I stopped caring about anything except the numbers in my bank account. The first crack in my family came in 1985. My sister Patricia needed help. Her husband had cancer, could not work, and they were drowning in medical bills despite having insurance. She asked me for a loan, $50,000 to keep them afloat until he could get back on his feet. $50,000. I spent more than that on a single business dinner that year. It was nothing to me financially, but something had changed in how I thought about money and family. I had started seeing every request for help as people trying to take advantage of my success. I told Patricia no, not because I did not have the money, but because I thought helping her would set a precedent. I thought if I helped one family member, they would all come asking for handouts. I thought saying no was teaching them self-reliance. Patricia never spoke to me again. Her husband died in 1987, and she struggled alone with 2 teenagers and a mortgage she could barely afford. I could have solved all her problems with the money I spent on a vacation that same year, but I chose to protect my wealth instead of protecting my sister. The second crack came with my brother Michael. Michael was an artist, a painter who made beautiful work that no one wanted to buy. He lived in a tiny apartment, drove a 15-year-old car, and was genuinely happy creating art that mattered to him more than money ever could. But I could not understand that. I could not understand choosing passion over profit, meaning over money, fulfillment over financial success. I kept offering to bring Michael into the business, to teach him how to make real money instead of wasting his life on paintings. Michael kept refusing. He said he would rather be poor and do work he loved than rich and do work that emptied his soul. I thought he was naive. I thought he was lazy. I thought he was making excuses for failure. In 1992, Michael asked me to help fund an art show. He had been invited to display his work in a gallery, but he needed $3,000 to frame the paintings and pay for the opening reception. $3,000. I spent more than that on wine that year. I said no. I told Michael that if his art was any good, people would pay for it. I told him I was not going to subsidize his hobby. I told him to get a real job and stop expecting other people to support his dreams. Michael stopped calling me after that, stopped inviting me to family gatherings, stopped sharing his life with someone who had reduced his life's work to a hobby that was not worth $3,000 of support. Michael died of a heart attack in 2019. I went to his funeral and saw dozens of people whose lives had been touched by his art, his teaching, his generosity with his time and talent. I realized I had been completely wrong about what made his life valuable, but I realized it 30 years too late. The biggest crack, the one that destroyed everything, came with my own children. David, born in 1969. Susan, born in 1971. Two kids I loved more than anything in the world when they were small, before money made me start seeing them as potential threats to my wealth instead of the purpose for creating it. I raised David and Susan to understand money, to respect it, to work for it, but somewhere along the way, I started treating them like employees instead of children, like business associates instead of family members who deserved my love, regardless of their productivity. David wanted to study music in college. He was talented, passionate, and had been accepted to a prestigious conservatory. But I refused to pay for what I called a worthless degree that would never earn him a living. I told David I would pay for business school, law school, or medical school. Anything that would prepare him for a real career that made real money. I would not pay for him to study something as impractical as music. David took out student loans and went to the conservatory anyway. Graduated with $60,000 in debt and a degree in classical guitar performance. He teaches music now, plays in a small orchestra, and lives modestly but happily doing work he loves. I spent more on landscaping that year than David borrowed for his entire education, but I was so angry that he defied me, so determined to prove that his choice was wrong, that I refused to help him with his loans even after he graduated. David stopped asking for my approval or my support. He built a life without me, married a woman I barely know, and had children I have met exactly 3 times because he does not want them exposed to a grandfather who measures everything by money. Susan chose differently. Susan went to business school, got her MBA, and joined the family company. I thought she was the smart one, the one who understood what mattered. I was grooming her to take over the business, preparing her to inherit everything I had built. But Susan was not like me. Susan cared about the people who worked for us, the tenants who rented our properties, the communities where we did business. She wanted to run the company with principles I had abandoned decades earlier. In 2015, Susan proposed that we renovate our low-income housing instead of selling it to developers who would tear it down and displace hundreds of families. It would have cost us money in the short term, but would have provided decent housing for people who needed it. I said no. I said business was not charity. I said our responsibility was to shareholders, not tenants. I said if she was not tough enough to make hard decisions, she was not ready to run the company. Susan kept pushing. She brought me studies showing that renovating would be profitable in the long run. She brought me stories about families who had lived in our properties for decades. She tried to appeal to my conscience, my sense of responsibility, my memory of what my grandfather had built the business to do. I fired her, my own daughter. I fired her from the family company for caring more about people than profit, for having principles I had traded away for money, for being the person I used to be before wealth corrupted my soul. Susan was devastated, not just because she lost her job, but because I chose money over her, business over family, being right over being loving. She had spent years trying to work with me, trying to balance profit with principle, trying to honor both my values and her own. I told myself I was teaching her a lesson about the real world. I told myself business was business and family was family, and she needed to learn the difference. I told myself that letting emotions interfere with financial decisions was a weakness I could not afford. Susan started her own company, a small property management firm that does exactly what she wanted our company to do. She renovates affordable housing, works with community organizations, and makes a modest profit while making a real difference in people's lives. She is successful in ways I never learned to measure. Her tenants love her. Her employees respect her. She goes to bed every night knowing her work makes the world a little better. She is rich in everything except money, and she is happier than I have ever been. The final break came in 2018 when my wife Margaret was dying. Margaret had always been the bridge between me and the children, the one who smoothed over my harsh words and reminded them that I loved them even when I showed it poorly. As Margaret got sicker, she begged me to reconcile with David and Susan. She wanted her family together for her final months. She wanted to see her grandchildren, to have holidays where everyone gathered around her bed, to die surrounded by love instead of surrounded by the silence that money had bought me. I refused. I said they had made their choices and I had made mine. I said if they wanted a relationship with me, they could apologize for defying me and accept that I had been right about the importance of financial success. Margaret died with David and Susan holding her hands while I sat in the corner, too proud to admit I was wrong, too stubborn to choose love over being right, too afraid of appearing weak to show the vulnerability that might have saved my family. At Margaret's funeral, I sat alone in the front row while my children comforted each other and their spouses and their children. I was surrounded by hundreds of people, but completely isolated because I had chosen money over every relationship that made life worth living. David gave the eulogy. He talked about his mother's kindness, her generosity, her ability to love people for who they were instead of what they could do for her. He talked about the music she encouraged him to study, the principles she taught Susan, the grandchildren she adored. He never mentioned me. In a 20-minute speech about his mother's life, her husband of 46 years was invisible. Not because he hated me, but because I had made myself irrelevant to the family I should have been leading with love instead of ruling with money. After the funeral, David and Susan came to me, together. They told me they forgave me for choosing money over family, for firing Susan, for refusing to support David's dreams. They said they wanted to try again, to find a way to be a family despite everything I had done to destroy it. They asked for one thing. They asked me to apologize, not for being successful, not for building wealth, but for making money more important than love, for treating them like employees instead of children, for choosing being right over being connected. I could not do it. Standing in the cemetery where I had just buried my wife, surrounded by the children I loved but had driven away, I could not admit that I had been wrong. I could not say that money mattered less than family because I had built my entire identity around the opposite belief. I told them they were being emotional. I told them business decisions were not personal decisions. I told them I had given them opportunities they had chosen to waste, and if they wanted forgiveness, they should ask for it themselves. David and Susan looked at me with a mixture of pity and sadness, and something that might have been love if I had been able to receive it. Then they walked away. Together. And they never came back. That was 6 years ago. I am 88 years old now, and I have not spoken to either of my children since Margaret's funeral. I have not met 2 of my grandchildren who were born after that day. I have no relationship with the family I worked so hard to provide for because I forgot that providing money is not the same as providing love. I spend my days in this big house, surrounded by expensive things that mean nothing without people to share them with. I eat dinner alone at a table that seats 12. I sleep in a bed big enough for 2, but empty for 6 years. My lawyer calls me every month to discuss estate planning. He wants to know how to distribute my wealth when I die. I tell him I'm still thinking about it, but the truth is, there is no one to leave it to. My children do not need my money. They built lives without it. My grandchildren do not know me. My sister and brother are gone. I will probably leave everything to charity. Some foundation that will use my money to help people in ways I was too selfish to help when it mattered. It will be a good use of wealth that was accumulated at the cost of every relationship that could have given my life meaning. The other residents at the country club where I have dinner sometimes ask me about my family. I tell them my children live far away, that we are not close. They assume it is geography or busy schedules that keep us apart. They do not know that the distance is measured in years of choosing money over love. Some of these men are like I was, wealthy, successful, proud of what they have built and accumulated. They talk about their business victories, their investment strategies, their plans for growing their wealth. I want to warn them, but I know they would not listen any more than I would have listened at their age. You cannot understand what money costs until you have paid the price. You cannot see how wealth can make you poor in everything that matters until you are sitting alone with more money than you can spend and no one who cares enough to spend it with you. Here is what I wish I had understood when I was younger, when there was still time to choose differently, when my family still believed I could love them more than I loved money. Money is a tool, but it is a dangerous tool. Like a knife, it can be used to prepare food that nourishes people or as a weapon that cuts and kills. Money can provide security and comfort and opportunities, or it can become the thing you serve instead of the thing that serves you. When you start measuring your success by your net worth instead of your relationships, you have started down a path that leads to wealth and loneliness. When you start seeing family members as potential threats to your financial security instead of people who love you, you have begun to trade everything that matters for something that only matters if you have people to share it with. When you start making every decision based on what is profitable instead of what is right, you stop being the person your family fell in love with and start being the person they have to protect themselves from. I chose to be right instead of being loved. I chose to win financial battles instead of preserving family relationships. I chose to protect my money instead of investing in my people. I chose to be feared and respected instead of known and cherished. I won. I have more money than I ever dreamed of having. I built a financial empire that will outlast me by generations. I proved that I was smarter and tougher and more successful than anyone who ever doubted me. I also lost everything that made success worth achieving. I lost the people who would have celebrated my victories with me. I lost the relationships that would have given my wealth meaning and purpose. I lost the family that was supposed to be the reason for building something lasting. You young people who are building careers and accumulating wealth, hear me. Make money, but do not let money make you. Build success, but do not build it on the graves of your relationships. Provide for your family, but do not forget that the most important thing you can provide is your love, your attention, your presence in their lives. Your children do not need you to be rich. They need you to be proud of them, even when their choices are different from yours. They need you to support their dreams, even when you do not understand them. They need you to love them more than you love being right about what their lives should look like. Your spouse does not need you to buy expensive things. They need you to choose them over work, over money, over business opportunities that require you to sacrifice time together. They need you to be present for the life you are building together, not just the lifestyle you are funding. Your siblings, your parents, your friends, they do not need you to solve all their problems with money, but sometimes they need you to help, not because they cannot survive without you, but because helping people you love is one of the ways love shows up in the world. Money is not evil, poverty is not virtuous, but money without love is meaningless, and wealth without relationships is poverty of the worst kind. I am 88 years old, and I am dying alone in a house that costs more than most people will earn in their lifetimes. I have everything money can buy and nothing that money cannot buy. I have proven that you can gain the whole world and lose your soul, that you can win every financial battle and lose the war for what makes life worth living. Do not be like me. Do not trade your family for financial success. Do not choose money over love. Do not win in ways that make you lose everything that matters. Because money is not what you take with you when you go. Love is what you leave behind when you are gone. And I am leaving behind nothing but regret and empty rooms and wealth that will go to strangers because I chose to be a stranger to the people who should have mattered most. I am tired now. Tired and alone and rich in everything except what would make this wealth worth having. Choose love, choose family, choose being connected over being right. Because the alternative is this, dying alone with everything and nothing at the same time.